Hey, everybody. This is Dr. Lori Shemek.
And I'm Omar Cumberbatch. You're listening to This Podcast Burns Fat. Hey, Lori, how are you today?
Hi, Omar. Doing great. It's so great to hear your voice. It's a
Likewise.
Brand new year.
Yes.
We are on it.
Yeah. Now we're rolling. We're not letting up. It's going to be a great year. I'm really excited about it, sharing new and exciting guests on the regular.
Yes, and it's going to be a great year. We're going to come out with our course, and we have so many more plans in the queue, including good guests as well, excellent guests.
Yeah.
And one of them is here today, and is Dr. Jessica Hehmeyer, and she is a functional medicine doctor, which simply means that they get to the root of what is causing your condition, as opposed to putting slapping a Band-Aid on it with medication, etc. They find the root cause, and she definitely does. And she deals with weight loss, which is what she does here today. But she also does sleep and digestion and other areas, heart health. But she's fantastic. We had a really good time with her.
Yeah, no, I was really excited to have her on board. I always love a functional medicine doctor. I think I need one in my life. But she also talked about just like that all or nothing approach that I'm super, super victim to. And it's like, it's really, really
You mean
touched
the sugar problem?
Just everything. It's like,
just kidding.
I can't do anything in moderation. That's my problem. And if I can master that, which she talks about on this show, which was really helpful for me, I'd be a lot better off and not so caught up in this diet cycle. So I was really appreciative of how she dove into that part of this conversation as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, she was great. So let's listen.
Yeah, let's jump in. Here we go.
Okay.
Hey, Dr. Hehmeyer, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Such a pleasure to be with you.
Well, thank you so much. We've really been looking forward to having you on. And just for our listeners to know that Dr. Jessica Hehmeyer is the founder of Well Empowered, which uses functional medicine as an approach that to help heal. And what she does is identify the root cause of health symptoms, which I personally support and believe everyone should have a functional medicine physician on hand. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a treat to be with you and your audience.
Thank you.
So Dr. H, can you expand on that a bit and how you got into that lane of being a functional medicine doctor? Because I think, like Lori says, I wish I had more in the New York area to jump on, because it's I believe in it as well. So if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to say a little bit more about functional medicine, right? Some people are familiar with that term. And for those who aren't, just a little explanation of how I think about it. I think about it like data-driven natural medicine. And really in the functional medicine approach, we're looking to identify and address the root cause and support the body in healing from, kind of the foundation up sort of thing. And, I say natural, I personally only use natural interventions, but there are some functional medicine practitioners who will marry a combination. And that's great too, right? Because listen, different tools are appropriate for different people. So we always want
antibiotics for one thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes we need them.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. Or there are times when certain different tools from different practitioners are required, and I'm a big fan of bringing them all together in service of the people in front of us, right? But how I got into functional medicine is, I always say straight lines are boring. And out of college, I went to UCLA undergrad and returned back to the Chicago area where I'm from, and opened up the first high intensity strength training facility in the city in 2002. And was the managing partner there for about 4 years. And I loved the opportunity to contribute to people and their health, but I wanted to be able to expand my ability to contribute. And so from there, I went to graduate school. I first got my degree as a chiropractor, and somewhere in the middle, I really got that I could shape shift my career to focus on functional medicine. And so I went on to get my master's of science in nutrition and functional medicine. And I have colleagues who are chiropractors who do a really great job. It's not traditional chiropractic care has not been someplace that I've lived professionally myself. I've always been in the functional medicine realm since I stepped out of school and started working with people. So that's how I got where I am.
That is really, it's interesting how we go through life and we don't realize we're creating a story,
Yes.
And so I love that you did all of that. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. But, really more than anything, and I'm sure this is true for you, I see health as an opportunity to support people and bring their gift fully to the world, right? Because without our health, being able to author our life, we're limited. There are barriers we're going to encounter. And so, oh my gosh, it's such a joy to be a part of that journey with people.
Especially the most important journey, which is our health and the foundational journey, I should say. Yeah. So you help people with their weight as well. And you have something what you talk about mastering your middle ground, you ditching the all or nothing approach or them ditching the all or nothing approach. And I'd love for you to just expand on that a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that I've seen over decades of working with people in this world of weight loss mastery is that we inherited a paradigm that is so broken, right? And that paradigm is what I call all or nothing, right? All or nothing. And if you think about how that all or nothing approach is lived, it's the Whole30 followed by a deep dish pizza and a bottle of wine, right? It's overindulgence or deprivation. Those are the two options that people mostly live in who struggle with their weight.
That's a really good perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's broken, but they don't even know, oftentimes people come to me feeling so ashamed and feeling like there's something wrong with them. And it's really freeing when they get, for those people, when they get, there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with the template you were handed. The template doesn't work, right? And so when people step into a new journey defined by creating, authoring, mastering their middle ground, oh my gosh, the whole world shifts. What was once a struggle and difficult and a source of just, feeling like a failure, it suddenly shifts and they find themselves mastering what it is to honor their health and their lives, care for themselves from a place of self-love versus self-aggression. And I would say that self-aggression is the defining feature of either overindulgence or deprivation, either one of those. And overindulgence is different than indulgence. They're not the same thing, right? Versus mastering one's middle ground, that really is born of self-love. So, that's a little bit about mastering your middle ground.
Yeah, and in order to do that, you have to have some knowledge, awareness, maybe is a better word, right?
Well, I think you're right. Both knowledge and awareness, right? Because it's not that, when people come to see me, well, sure, of course, they are aware that a salad with a piece of salmon and avocado and, olive oil on it is going to provide their body with more nutritional value than a Big Mac. They know that, right? But there are things that they do need to learn about how the body works, right? It's not strictly a matter of calories in versus calories out, right? For our weight, right? Yes, that is certainly true, right? The law of thermodynamics is real. There's a certain amount of that. But then there's also the impact of how we fuel our body and how it affects our hormones, insulin, our hunger hormones, things like that, right? And then there's the inflammatory potential of food. So, 100 calories could have a lot of different impacts on the body as it relates to our metabolism. And so definitely you are right. There are things people need to learn. They need to know certain facts about how their body works. And also they do need to be willing to lean into their wisdom and gather insights.
So, Dr. H, I am definitely an all or nothing person. And I know a lot of the listeners I deal with this. What is like the first step that you take to approach this when someone presents that issue? What is the first thing that you tell them that they need to kind of get in their heads to kind of navigate this and deal with it a little bit better?
Yeah. Well, thank you for acknowledging your all or nothing, Omar. Guess what? You are in really, really good company. So that's good news. And really where I invite you and all of your listeners to begin is it's an exercise I walk people through called creating your vision of vitality. And to say a little bit more about that, I really believe we don't buy what we do. We buy why we do it. In other words, the what of actions that are required to excel in any area are at least sometimes, and perhaps often, not compelling, right? If you think what it took to, get a degree, right? Is it super compelling to stay up late and, stare at a book and, like be sleep deprived? No, that's not, right? But what becomes available out of it, that's really compelling, right? That's exciting. So it's kind of like that in this area, right? Supporting people and getting connected to why. Because in the moment, the deep dish pizza, delicious, right? Or I should say New York style for you, right, Omar? But
Yep.
but delicious, right? So why would you make a different choice? And so it begins with what I call creating your vision of vitality. And the first step to that is doing a little bit of time traveling. So if you do a little bit of time traveling to the 5-year future and you start to imagine what your life would be like with this area of your life handled, right? It's just kind of easy for you to be with food and make choices that work for you, and your body looks the way you want it to look, and you feel great in your body, and you get to be how you get to be in the world because you're walking around confident in your awesome body, all those different things. So if you start to imagine that 5-year future, that's the first step. And now the second step is actually writing that story, like pen to paper, tell the story. And, how old are you right now, Omar? Not to put you on the spot.
45.
45. Okay, I'm a step ahead of you. I'm 46. So, we'll be in our 50s then, right? So you'd be saying, I'm 50 years old, and you tell that story in first person present tense. My body is strong. It's resilient. Whatever else you would say about that 5-year future where you are cruising along in your middle ground, you tell that story. And, through that, when I work with people one-on-one or in groups, we go through a process to ultimately create a 2 to 3 sentence vision of vitality, which really is your intention for your health and your life. And so when you start to not just create your intention, but you begin the practice of connecting to your intention daily, things start to open up naturally, right? It becomes easier to, have a couple of French fries versus, the whole plate. It becomes easier to, have a couple of less drinks or whatever it is. People have different things that are challenges for them. But whatever that challenge is, when their North Star is front of mind versus the scale or, how their pants fit or whatever they would say, it becomes a different journey. Because really, if the scale or pants or tops or whatever were that compelling, people would have this handled. It's
True.
not that compelling. But feeling great about, feeling great so you can be your best, that's a different conversation.
So that was really great. Yeah. And I completely support that. So I want to ask you, what is the one question that will transform what is possible?
Well, it really is, why do you want your health? Why do you want your health?
The big
And
why.
yes, the big why. And I honestly think if physicians far and wide of every type started asking their patients that question, I believe over time, health would really transform in this country, right? Because along with that all or nothing, there's kind of a dynamic, and we could say a lot about where it was born, but oftentimes people go to physicians with, make me healthy kind of approach, and every doctor in the world, no matter what paradigm they were born into, knows that's not possible, right? I mean, yes, someone can prescribe an antibiotic, and that's very helpful at times. But, long-term health, people have to step into what's my why and how am I going to forward that? What am I going to do to move towards that?
Mm-hmm. So, Doc, what are the things that I really wanted to just go back to regarding your functional medicine background? What have you discovered in that particular realm that has very much impacted the way you view weight loss specifically? Because we just had Reed Davis on the show, and he's functional diagnostic nutrition, the certification program. He runs a lot of labs that get to the root of all the issues. Have you come across anything that it was really prevalent that you think impacts weight loss specifically?
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes, yes. And I would say, a few different things. One of them being inflammation, right? People often will come to me saying, well, I'm inflamed. And I'll ask them a little bit more about how does that show up in your body? And maybe they'll say I'm bloated, or I've got brain fog, or my joints hurt, right? And it's useful to hear how those symptoms show up. But inflammation is a measurable, knowable number, right? And so oftentimes, and I would say more often than not, by a big margin, people are inflamed, but they don't have any symptoms. In other words, the only way they're going to know is if they go do these labs, right? And so when inflammation is elevated, it really interferes with weight loss. And if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense, right? Inflammation is designed to support a healing process, right? Short-term inflammation is appropriate for the body, but it's the chronic inflammation that's the problem. But the short-term inflammation, right? If, hundreds of years ago, you break your legs in the woods, you break a leg in the woods, you better be able to use the fuel your body has until you're able to find someone to help you, right? And get some food from that person, right? So the slowing of the metabolism definitely makes sense in that sense. But oftentimes people don't know that is what's interfering with their ability to lose weight. So that's a really big one.
What are the markers for that, just so we know?
Yeah, the biggest one, one that I lean on all the time is HSCRP, right? High sensitivity C-reactive protein. I do also look at homocysteine as an inflammatory marker. It tells us much more than that, but that's another one. But HSCRP and homocysteine are the two I most commonly lean on. There are other ones I might turn to at certain points, but in the way of long-term chronic inflammation, I find those most useful.
Yeah, those are two that I lean on as well. So the one question that will transform what's possible, essentially it is answering with accountability, correct?
It's answering with accountability, but it's really marrying heart and mind to tap into your why, right? What is your why? Why is it important to you to lose weight? If you think about how it would be to get dressed in the morning and go to a cocktail party and go to a work event and be with your spouse, how does that impact your experience of life and your ability to connect with others?
Yeah.
Because typically that's pretty profound, right? Especially for people who have struggled in this area for years or decades. It's always interesting to me when I ask people, when did, weight come on your radar, or when did it occur to you that your body was a way it quote unquote shouldn't be? And so often I hear from people, it's like, it's just feels like it's always been like that. Or I remember when I was 5 and my mom's best friend told me I was chubby, or whatever it was. It's like, oh my gosh, 5-year-old stuck with that. Like, wow. So it's helping people get their why, what would be available if this was just handled after really struggling with it for years or decades. It becomes a different, it shifts in the moment.
Yeah. And
the way that people navigate.
Yeah. And I would also add that it's not just why, like, I want to get into a size 6 dress,
Absolutely.
It's much, it's deeper than that. And you have to keep saying why, why, to get to
perfectly
that
said.
Why.
Yes, perfectly said. And it's so funny because, right, when people create their vision of vitality, never, ever, ever does anyone ever say anything about weight. Never. It always says something like, I'm confident and move about the world with peace and joy. I'm able to contribute fully to my family and friends. It's like something like that. That would be an example. It's not a precise example, but it's like, oh, well, that's very different. So, how are you going to move towards that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's incredibly important to answer that why. And, it's a foundation just as much as nutrition is a foundation for all health.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So, Doc, one of the things I think maybe I could piggyback on, like the last two questions, are, obviously accountability is important, and what we're putting into our bodies generally is going to tamper down that inflammation that causes the cascade of all these weight issues. What are the things that we should truly avoid, knowing that, okay, we're not going to fall off the cliff and be an all or nothing approach, but there's got to be something out there that we should be mindful of eating?
Yes. And I think about this as, I call it Q2 yes, Q2C2. I call it Q2 yes, Q2 less. And Q2 yes is quality and quantity of high nutrient foods. Like, what do we want to be a yes to? And Q2 less is lower quality foods. We want to throw away the old language of good or bad, right? There's no morality in food. It just produces certain outcomes. And so if we ditch the words like good or bad, cheat, should, shouldn't, and we start to talk about what serves our health and our body, it supports the shifting of a paradigm that allows for sustained actions and therefore sustained outcomes. So in the Q2 yes category, right, high quality foods that support our health, that support us being a weight that has us feel our best and be our best. There's a decent list, but really just fundamentally speaking, we could start with a half a plate of colorful vegetables twice daily, right? Loading up on those beautiful anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense, vegetables, and favoring low glycemic over glycemic. But for some people, that level of detail might not be the best place to start, right? So we always want to start where people are. People arrive to the conversation of their health and their body with different levels of knowledge, different levels of experience, and it's kind of like, is this a little one who's currently riding a tricycle? Or is this someone who knows how to ride a bike around a cul-de-sac and is interested in mountain biking, right? We want to assess where that person is, but, fundamentally starting with, okay, half a plate of vegetables twice daily, making sure people are getting high quality anti-inflammatory proteins with each meal, healthy fats, kind of like a palm-sized portion with each meal, whether that's avocado or nuts or olive oil, all those beautiful anti-inflammatory fats. So those are a few things on the Q2 yes side. And then alternatively, people could focus or maybe marry one thing on the Q2 yes with the Q2 less, right? And the Q2 less, a really, top of the list is sugar, right? I always say sugar is the devil, right? And it's the devil because people really get addicted to it, right? They sit there, in a trance eating a box of cookies as they're, and then they wake up and they're like, what did I just do? Right. And there are a lot of reasons why people end up being owned by sugar. One of them being possibly a disruption of their microbiome, but, starting with 9 grams of sugar or less in any one sitting very reasonable place to start, right? If people who feel owned by sugar just started to really get present to how much sugar am I having throughout the day? So maybe for some people, it might be calculating their sugar throughout the day before they even try to change anything, and, what gets measured gets managed. So starting there, but 9 grams of sugar or less in anyone sitting is a great place to start. I am an omnivore. So for a lot of people, eating a variety of animal proteins is great, but also, the red meats are more pro-inflammatory. So keeping that red meat to twice a week and leaning more on the clean poultries and the omega-3 rich fish for other protein sources, that's a really great place to be also. And then the third one I'd put on that category, in that category would be those simple carbohydrates, which essentially 2 grams of fiber or less. Keeping those at a palm-sized portion in the long game, working towards about twice a week. But for most people, it's just not right to start there, right? They might start with, okay, a palm-sized portion once a day. And if that would be a better game, awesome. I'm cheering for it.
Those are incredible tips. And, and I know our listeners are going to really, apply them. But I'd also like your feeling on the difference between, which a lot of people feel, is I should or I can't, and versus I choose, right?
Yeah.
So don't you find that there's a huge difference in in the behavior too that comes with that?
Totally. So well said. Yes. So that should, can't world, right? It's the should world, firstly, is just like so full of shame, right? When we feel like we should be doing something and we're falling short, it's like, oh, just speaking those words out loud, I can feel it in my body. It's like, oh, just that feeling of like, I've let myself down. I've let someone else down, right? So that world, of morality is just, it just doesn't have a place in the conversation of health. Right? How we care for our body produces certain outcomes. And most people are really doing the best they can do. And, maybe they're self-soothing with alcohol or sugar. And it started from a good place. We all want to feel well, but we need to guide people in finding new ways to self-soothe that allow them to be who they are committed to being, to author the life they intend. So, letting go of that should and stepping into I choose, super powerful. And even a conversation I have with the people who I work with is, do you have any regrets? And the other thing that I say about that is, in the world of regrets, like regret is actually useful. Regret is looking back and saying, gosh, if I could do that again, I'd make a different choice. And then you can say, okay, what choice would I make? Right. And then you figure that out and you think about in the future in a similar situation, how you might, bring that to life.
And how you might feel. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Versus the shame conversation is something like, I'm bad, I'm bad or wrong. And you're just like backed into a corner. There's no opportunity there. Right. And so, regret is useful. Shame's not super useful. But even inside of regret, like, you don't need to, just because you had, a cheeseburger last night, it doesn't mean you regret it. People need to step into their truth, right? Do you really regret it? And sometimes the regret doesn't show up until they do the labs, right? Because maybe their weight is great, but they have an increased risk of diabetes or heart disease. And so being able to see how your actions are impacting your likely future, that's really important, right?
That's
Labs
powerful.
are really, really important.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then in that whole world, I can't, it's like, there's also similar to, I shouldn't, backed into a corner. There's nowhere you can go from I can't, right? It's total disempowerment.
Total. Yeah.
And so, it's so funny you bring this up, because I don't often, people who I work with, for whatever reason, don't often say the I can't in my conversations. They will say initially I should or shouldn't, right? But I can't less so But the other day I heard a woman saying, I couldn't or I can't. And we had a conversation about shifting to that to I choose or I chose. Totally fine that you chose, right? But you just chose, right?
There is choice in chose.
Yes. Exactly. That's right.
Yeah, so Dr. H, one of the things that I saw on your website, and it's something that just jumped out at me, honestly, is this concept of the force field of weight loss. So I wanted to touch on that before we let you go for today.
Yeah. So the force field of weight loss is all part of this inherited paradigm, this all or nothing paradigm. And, you think about when we were all born, right? At a certain point, we acquired this magical gift of language, and we just joined in conversations that were happening around us. And so there were these conversations about weight that were happening in food. And it just kind of at a certain point seemed like it was the truth rather than things people made up a long time ago and that just stuck, right? And so the first, conversation that is born of this force field of weight loss is grounded in morality, right? Which we've talked about, the good or the bad or the should or the shouldn't. But there are about 7 different conversations and a couple of myths also. But another conversation people often have in the world in this force field is something like, I had the burger at lunch, so tonight we might as well just order pizza. Right.
That's me.
And that's, I love it. And I like to call that the quote unquote screw it mentality, right? That screw it mentality. You didn't make it up, Omar, is actually part of the force field, right? But, when people start to see, wow, I actually really could make a different choice at any moment. I had the burger for lunch, and you know what? We're going to have salmon and roasted Brussels sprouts for dinner. Great. That's a better game, And so when people step into that, things really shift. Or I had one more drink that I intended to, but I'm going to stop now. I'm not going to turn that into, well, I had one more, so I might as well have 3 more. So
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big one. And one that, as we, as people move throughout, celebrations, whether it's birthdays or holidays or big life events, if they can step into that with playing a better game, oh my gosh, over time things really transform.
No, you're definitely right. Over time, for sure, because like even if you're eating 3 meals a day, and you just mess up one, you still have a passing grade of almost like 70%. But a lot of people like myself, go over 3, and because I messed up the first one, and you're starting at a deficit. So, like you said, compounding over time, it makes a big difference, and you shouldn't actually just let yourself fall off the cliff.
Well, and just, standing in the, getting reconnected to your why, right? If you do have something that doesn't align with your intention, right? You regret it, just regrounding in, why do I care about my health? Okay. What is the next choice I could make in service of that? And, that's a practice to develop. It's a little bit like a muscle, developing that new perspective, but you can do it for sure.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Doc, you've been fantastic. I thank you for finally getting this with us, because we had a difficult time getting this together, but it was so well worth the wait and the complication.
Totally.
So.
Oh my gosh, the feeling is mutual. Yeah, the time zone juggling and it's real. But thank you both for persevering.
Thank you.
Oh, no, likewise. So can you tell
wonderful.
us? Yeah, no, absolutely. So can you tell us where we can keep up with all the good things you're doing, your website, social media handles, and everything? We can keep abreast of all the new and innovative things that we've personally seen on your website and your social media. Could you share that with the audience?
Yes, absolutely. So wellempowered.com. Well Empowered is where you can find me. And for all of your listeners, if you'd like to schedule a complimentary consultation, you'll find a button there. And I will be offering some courses coming up here in the future. So feel free to reach out about that on Mastering Your Middle Ground. And then on Instagram is primarily where I live on the social media world. And that's at Well Empowered.
Awesome.
And it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jessica. We really loved having you. And like Omar said, it took a while, but we got you finally.
Oh my gosh. Thank you both. It's been such a treat to be with you and your audience today.
Thank you.
Oh, likewise. All right. Have a great rest of the day.
Take
Thanks,
care.
you too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of This Podcast Burns Fat. We're so excited to have you as a listener, and we're hoping that you really enjoyed the content as well. And if you did, please run over to iTunes and provide a rating and or review. It will go a long way in helping us continuously build our listenership up so that we can provide you with excellent content regarding fat loss, weight management, and just an overall healthy lifestyle. Thanks so much. Have a great night.